Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jackie Stahl. I am the chair of YPN South Bend and VP of Marketing and Communications at the South Bend Clinic. Welcome to the fourth and annual YP Summit this year, YP Summit Week, with week-long lineup of virtual and in-person programming. Today's session is all about personal branding. We have a virtual session again tomorrow at noon with a focus on mind and body connection, and our in-person after party at Generations Adventureplex. As we learned in yesterday's session, social interaction is critical to good brain health. So hopefully you guys attend, and there is axe throwing, there are bowling, arcade games, drinks, so please come out and have a good time. So with the support of the South Bend Regional Chamber and program sponsors like Gibson, Indiana Michigan Power, YPN celebrates 16 years. We thank them for their support, along with this year's summit presenting sponsor, the University of Notre Dame. Some of you have heard this yesterday, but it's a great message. Let's hear from Notre Dame now.
On behalf of the University of Notre Dame, welcome to the YP Summit Week. The university is proud to be the presenting sponsor for this annual event because we believe young professionals are vital to successful organizations. We also believe it's important for young professionals to have a space to connect with each other and ourselves, especially during this challenging time. The past 19 months have been rough. Now more than ever, young professionals are at risk for burning out. Some of us have made adjustments to work from home, transitioned back to the office, or have been essential workers for our organizations all along. If you feel like you've put yourself on the back burner, this week is for you. I hope you take advantage of the awesome sessions and enjoy the after party. I encourage you to thank our YPN ambassadors for their hard work in making this event a success. Let's keep doing the right things with the goal of gathering in person next year.
All right, thank you, Tracy and Notre Dame. And yes, talking about in person, again, Generations Adventureplex tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you. So stay tuned at the end of today's program for your chance to win one of two $25 gift cards to the Lobber, courtesy of First Response, but you must be present to win, please. Now with today's program. Our speakers are Macy Troyer and Ryan Zerfas. Macy is the founder and CEO of Blossom Social Media and a 2020 Michiana 40 Under 40 recipient. Ryan is the influencer marketing manager at Lippert, partnering with dozens RV, auto, and marine social media influencers to promote Lippert's brand. Before we welcome them, in regards to Q&A, they are going to go through their presentation and then we will answer questions at the end. But without further ado, please welcome Macy and Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much to the YPN team. I'm super excited to be here. Ryan, I know you're excited as well.
I sure am. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
So let's get started. We're going to talk about personal branding today, as you know. We're going to talk about why personal branding. We're going to go through some common questions about personal branding. We're going to find out the steps to build your personal brand. We're going to talk about content planning. And then like Jackie mentioned, we're going to do Q&A at the end. Now is a good time to grab pen and paper. I suggest taking notes as they come to mind. We'll be asking a few questions and it will be a good idea just to jot them down. So let's dive right in. So what is personal branding anyways? It's the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence public perception of an individual by positioning them as an authority in their industry, elevating their credibility, and differentiating them from competition to ultimately advance their career and increase their influence, increase their circle of influence, and have a larger impact. So the key word here that I want you all to notice is differentiation. Personal branding is all about differentiating yourself. And so Ryan, what's your personal take on personal branding?
Yeah, so this is super helpful definition, but I wanted to add a little bit of my own color and flair to a definition. So I see personal branding as having confidence to put a stamp on who you are, what you're about, what matters to you, and then taking that and presenting it publicly. So whether that's physically in person or digitally on social platforms. And I wanted to adapt the definition just a little bit because a lot of the traditional definitions will include phrases about like advancing your career, beating out the competition, distinguishing yourself, which are all really good things. And I understand like competition is a part of the professional environment. But you'll hear Macy and I talk a lot about how personal branding, I think, is a lot more effective, fun, and rewarding when you focus more on helping others and serving others with what you have to offer and bring to the table, rather than thinking about just how others can help and serve you. So you'll hear us talk about that, focusing on how you can actually be an impactful and positive part of this community, and not just take.
Thank you, Ryan. That's fantastic. So let's dive into a few common questions. Okay, can you have a personal brand at the same time and separate from your company's brand? Everybody, what's your thoughts? Say yes or no in the comments. We'd love to hear some feedback. Our take is yes, you can absolutely have a separate brand from your company. My take is that your company and your personal brand identity with your company is only half of you, because you're not fully you, like where you're at when you're, with your friends, doing other things that you're passionate about. So your personal brand is the whole entire part of you in developing your personal brand. So from my experience, I used to work for a company called Cressy Commercial Real Estate. They're a fantastic company. I started doing their social media marketing and putting myself out there affiliated with the brand through video marketing on social media. It was amazing because I could be my authentic self, but also still be very polished and speak about the industry. But I had more things that I was passionate about outside of commercial real estate that I wasn't able to showcase when I was talking about the Cressy Commercial Real Estate brand. So yes, I absolutely think that you can have a personal brand that's separate from your company's brand. And I also have a completely different brand, and think of my Macy Troyer brand and my Blossom social media brand as completely separate brands.
Yeah, and some additional thought there too. I think when you go about building a personal brand, if you're doing it the right way with good intentional steps, from my perspective, that should really only be beneficial to your company and to its brand if you're going about it the right way, right? Because you'll be gaining notoriety and recognition in the community. You're going to get to know lots of individuals in other industries and businesses, and just get a feel for what's going on in the community. And you're also going to start to be seen a lot more as a leader and expert in your job and in your field. And so I feel like all of those things are beneficial to your company and to its brand for you to have that recognition in the company or in the community. So I would say, like, if your company really starts to put up a lot of red tape or really doesn't want you to have a personal brand, I would see that as a red flag, not to be like dramatic, but like I would see that as a potential red flag. So I would just open up a dialogue or a conversation with your company about like what's going on, like what do you see as being a challenge or a hindrance to this happening, and just try to work through that. And if they're not willing, I would see that as a red flag.
Yeah, I definitely see it as a huge benefit having a personal brand that's strong and working at a company, because you're almost like a cheerleader and an ambassador for the company. So I would agree with Ryan, definitely a big red flag if the company is not all about you developing your personal brand. Second question.
Yeah, so these next couple questions sort of come out of my personal experience, and I felt comfortable sort of showcasing them and having them be a part of this, because I think my experience resonates with a lot of people when they're going about building a personal brand. And so one of the first things that I thought about is like, what's one of the biggest barriers to people starting a personal brand? And I'd love to see some comments right now. If you have any thoughts about like, what do you think is the biggest barrier to starting your own personal brand? But I'll go ahead and share mine. I really believe that it is fear. I think fear is one of the biggest barriers to starting and having a personal brand, because it's a lot about putting yourself out there. Having a personal brand is that willingness to like have people see you and who you are and what you care about, and then have the opportunity to interact with you and possibly judge you, right? Whenever you put yourself out there, there's always that fear of judgment. So I think that fear leads to a lot of questions and hesitations in our minds, like, am I good enough? Do I actually have something to offer? Do people want to hear what I have to say? Do I know what I want to say? Like all of those questions, right, start flooding in. But I just want to encourage you guys that when you walk into, let's say you walk into a room full of people at a networking event, it's so easy for us when we're walking in to immediately have that mindset of like, okay, everyone else in this room has their stuff together. They know what they're doing. They know what they have to offer. They look great. They're connecting with the right people, and then feel like you don't have those things and that you're an imposter. But I would encourage you that really that's just a perception and a mindset that probably the majority of the people in that room have either been in your shoes before or are currently in those same shoes. And the only difference in that situation between them and you is that they've taken the few steps to go up and meet some people and start a conversation. So it just takes a little bit to overcome that fear and then get in a conversation or start doing your personal branding, and the light switch will turn and you'll overcome it.
Absolutely, Ryan. I couldn't agree more. I remember when I first graduated college and started working at Cressy, I would be so intimidated to talk to other professionals who were, C-suite level that I wanted to talk to, or other decision makers. My husband gave me a great reminder. He said, they're just humans like you. They have other passions just like you. They're just in a different position. And so just knowing that we're all humans makes it so much easier. Also, my other take with the biggest barrier to having a personal brand definitely is the fear. And one way that I combat that is by coming from a heart and a place of service and adding value to others. So when I meet somebody in person or when I'm communicating online, I want to add value and make their life better and easier. It's not a me approach. I would say personally, personal branding is not ego-driven. It's very service-driven, but you have to kind of wear that cap that, okay, I'm here to serve and to help other people. So yeah, I think that's one other way to combat the fear is by coming from that heart and that place of, I want to serve you and I want to help you with your business or whatever ideas that you might have.
So sort of in conjunction or tandem with that first one of fear, in my experience, one of the biggest components of actually having a successful personal brand and getting it started is actually confidence. So for me in my journey, a year and a half ago is really when I sort of kicked off my brand. And confidence is not something that comes very natural to me. I'm not the kind of person that like walks in a room and then immediately feels like everyone should look at me and I know my stuff and I know what I want to say and just have that natural confidence. And so I really have to work at it. But it's been so cool over the last year and a half to really build that confidence and to realize like we all have those unique things to bring to the table. Like, don't discredit yourself. You are unique in your experiences, your skills, your personality, and what you have to offer to others. And like Macy just said, like, we're all human, right? We're all coming to the table really equal. You have just as much to offer. I have just as much to offer as anyone else, right? We're just having conversations, getting to know people and building relationships. So just having that confidence to whether it's walking into a room or becoming active on social media and sort of putting yourself out there, do it. You have what it takes. We want to hear what you have to say. So just take those steps and have that confidence to do it.
Absolutely. And another reminder is not to compare yourself to anyone's career journey or personal branding journey. We each have our own unique stories, like Ryan has been saying. We each have our own equal seat at the table. A quote that I really like to remind myself is that comparison is the thief of joy. So try not to compare yourself in anything. We're all unique in our own ways, and that's really what makes life and people beautiful. Okay, so let's dive into why personal branding matters. I have this awesome long list. As you're reading through these, I'm going to read these out loud. Put in your favorite emoji or comment, whatever one resonates with you the most. So why does personal branding matter? You become more well-known. You learn about your existing clients, prospects, donors. You can foster relationships and develop new ones. You can decrease imposter syndrome. I've had that a million times. I think developing a personal brand authentically has helped tremendously. You can attract opportunities, stay top of mind. This could be with clients, with prospects, just people that you want to start building a relationship with. You can increase your impact because you have a little bit more leverage because you've been putting your voice out there. So you can move the needle forward for great things to happen. You get to live out your purpose and your personal why. You can grow your wealth, take control of your career, achieve your goals, and gain more self-confidence and step into the best version of yourself because you're being your authentic self online. Ryan, like you mentioned earlier, you're showcasing that vulnerability where people can judge you, but that's only going to make you stronger and have more confidence in who you are as a person and also who you are as a professional. So Ryan, let's talk a little bit about your personal branding journey and your story.
Yeah, so I love this list. I love looking back at it because it's just so encouraging to think back on how my personal brand has grown and what that's looked like. This list is totally accurate. I experienced pretty much all of these things pretty quickly. So when I started working on my personal brand, I immediately started to meet so many people in our community that I wouldn't have if I didn't start that brand and put myself out there. So I gained a lot of great relationships. I met people from industries I had never touched before or businesses. I started to have one-on-ones with individual people where I got to build really deep connections and relationships that have lasted till now, which is really, really cool. And as we've said, like just over and over, I've been building that confidence in who I am and what I have to offer. And that's a huge benefit in and of itself. But the coolest thing that I wanted to share is my actual job at Lippert right now. I got it in large part because of my personal branding efforts. So about a year ago, when this position became open, the person that was trying to fill it, who's actually on this call right now, he had been watching my personal branding journey primarily through LinkedIn and had taken note of just all the ways I was becoming active in the community and all of my posts and the content I was putting out there. And he was really impressed and intrigued by what I was doing. And so when this position became available, he was like, I know the guy, I know who we need. And so he recruited me to this position. And that was because of my personal brand and what I had been doing to establish myself in the community. And so that was just like really cool to see that all come to fruition and to realize like I just got a job because of that effort. Like that's awesome.
That's absolutely amazing. Congratulations, Ryan. I mean,
Thanks, Macy.
You probably didn't even have the intentions of, finding a job from building your personal brand. At least from my experience, I didn't even have intentions of building a personal brand. I truly was trying to add value through the video content at my former employer. And it just so happened that people were curious, asking questions, wanting to know more. And the more content and value that I was adding, the more people started seeing me as a subject matter expert and a leader in the industry. And that's how I now have successfully launched Blossom Social Media almost 2 years ago now, because people have been seeing me online and they like, know, and trust me. So people want to do business with people. When you show up authentically and have a nice personal brand that's polished and it's a good reflection of who you are, you can gain all of these awesome benefits on this list. So let's dive into the 6 steps to build your personal brand. Step 1, figure out who you are and what you want to accomplish. So what impact do you want to have? What are your BHAG goals? And this is a term for big, hairy, audacious goals. Weird, but if anyone's ever heard this term, leave an emoji. I want to see who knows this term. I learned it in marketing school. Do you want to start a business? Do you want to get promoted? Do you want to be a self-published author? So why I'm asking these questions is you have to figure out who you are and what you want to accomplish, because we have to have direction when building a personal brand. You can't want to be something but talking about, iPhones, but you're not even in the technology space and it's completely off. So we have to have a little bit of direction. So let's say, for example, you want to be a self-published author. You need to start warming up your audience to start trusting you that you can present this book, that you're credible to have this book and this topic. So that's just one example. And so whatever your goals are, with your personal brand, you have to make sure that your objectives are aligning, but also in real life, you have to believe that you can achieve these goals. So do you want a promotion? Do you want to start a business? Do you want to be a self-published author? So in real life, what does that person show up like? What does he or she do differently to achieve these goals as well? Because personal branding is not fake at all. It's completely real, but you have to completely believe what you can do and what you can achieve. And so that's my take, is that you also need to show up like this in real life. And so my suggestion for step 1 is just to write down some goals that you want to accomplish. You could do short-term goals or long-term goals, whatever best works for you, but it's kind of going to build out that framework and that blueprint for what direction you should start taking when you start communicating and building your personal brand in person and online.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, something that I found really helpful, and I know some people love this and some people hate it, but I'm going to say personality tests. And people that are on my team that are on this call right now are probably laughing because I've made them all take personality tests. But I think it's really helpful in personal branding to take personality tests as well. Just, step one here is figure out a little bit about who you are. I think it's really important to have that self-awareness as you start to put yourself out there. You need to be self-aware about, what makes you tick? What are your preferences? How do you interact with others? What stresses you out? Things like that, so that you can present yourself in the best way and the right way for others when you're personal branding. So some recommendations I would have, and some of you or a lot of you have probably taken some of these. First one would be Myers-Briggs, which is the one where you'll get 4 letters. The next one would be Enneagram, which you'll get 2 numbers. You can find free versions of those on Google if you just look up like free Enneagram, free Myers-Briggs. Those are super helpful. And then there's lots of others like Strength Finders, DISC, Berkman, Temperaments. I mean, I feel like there's probably like a new personality test that comes up every other day. So you could spend hours doing it, but I would say at least have a baseline of understanding yourself and your personality. Because like I said, that'll be just really helpful as you do move forward in figuring out like what's the best way to present yourself that's authentic and true to who you actually are.
Absolutely, Ryan. And I'm huge on personality tests too, so I'm not making fun of you at all, because I remember when I first learned what my Myers-Briggs letters were and I was reading about it, I was like, how do they know me so well? And so I just kept doing all this research. So I highly recommend that as well, because it's going to help you understand who you are at your core, because this is research. And so it's like, oh, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at this. And so that leads me into step number 2, talking about strengths. Determining your unique value proposition. So remember earlier when we went over the term personal branding and the word that I asked for you guys to have stick out in your mind, it was differentiation. So how can we understand what's different about us? How can we understand what our unique value proposition is? And so one of my recommendations is to understand what your strengths are and to talk about your strengths. If you don't know what your strengths are, what I would do is ask your friends, your family, your coworkers, your mentors, what your strengths are. And the reason why this is so important is this is going to help craft a more holistic image of yourself. And so you can start creating content and start talking about these things that are your strengths. It's going to help you get to where you want to go because these are your strengths. So you don't have to try to play into your weaknesses. I'm all about playing on your strengths. So finding out what your strengths are and then communicating about that. Another thing to think about is, what have you exceeded really well in the past? Did you complete a big project? What do your coworkers come to you for? What do they ask you for help with? And so these are also really, really helpful questions to start asking to understand what your strengths are and what your uniqueness is. By knowing your strengths, you can share your expertise and achievements, which is going to add value to other people. And it's going to be able to build trust and credibility so that you can be seen as that subject matter expert. But it's not being a subject matter expert because me, but it's because you can serve them best. And so that's that place where I'm coming from again, where it's that place of service. And so I think building trust and credibility is crucial if we have anybody in the audience that's wanting to build a business. Having that trust and credibility is probably the number 1 key component. Here are some additional questions too that I would have you ask yourself. And that would be, how has your uniqueness, life experience, career journey, and personality helped you thrive? In the past, do some reflection. What about you and your uniqueness has helped you thrive? What's unique about your personality and your view of the world? Like Ryan and I said earlier, everybody's so unique. We're on our own unique journeys. An example that comes to mind about this question would be, are you an introvert leader? Like, how unique would that be? And I think people who are other introvert leaders would like to learn about you if you're an introvert leader yourself. So just pulling out different things that are unique about you to understand, again, who you are at your core. And so those are my suggestions for determining your unique value proposition.
Yeah, I think another aspect, and this is sort of I think a funny one as like your unique value proposition, but just something that I think is important to think about in personal branding is how are you going to present yourself physically? So what are you going to look like and present to others? Whether you're showing up digitally, but obviously if you're showing up physically in the community, at events, at networking events, what do you want to look like and how do you want to present? So clearly people know me because of the shoes I wear, right? They're always looking at my feet. No, people are not looking at my feet. They're looking at my face. I have this thing going on. It's sort of like a giant mustache on my head. And so, that is sort of my distinguishing feature, obviously physically. And I've had this mustache, this whole journey of of personal branding, but it's been so cool to be recognized for something so silly and simple, but it's been super effective, right? Even though people will start a conversation with me just because I have a mustache on my face, that gives me the opportunity to then start a conversation and build a relationship with someone who maybe I wouldn't have if they didn't recognize me physically. So while not everyone has the ability to grow a mustache, and that's okay, there's lots of ways that you can distinguish yourself physically. So whether that's a specific kind of color palette that you like to wear, makeup, hair, if it's certain pieces of clothing that you're known for, maybe you're a tie person, maybe you've got really cool watches, maybe you are a shoe person. I know Craig Jockham's on this call. He's a sock guy. He's got all sorts of socks. So, lean into that when you sit down at a table, make sure your socks are showing, I know it's silly, but let people recognize you for those little distinguishing things physically. I think that's really helpful. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on real quick that Macy sort of already touched on was, I think it's really important for people to realize that you have a really unique set of life experiences that you're bringing from your past to the present. So I think it's important to recognize that your life experiences up until this point are unique to you. No one else obviously has your life experiences. So for me, I used to be a missionary and I traveled to 23 countries. It's good for me to be cognizant of how that makes me different from other people, in that I've had that opportunity to travel around the world and experience cultures and people from all over, and food and smells and all of the projects that I did there and all the stuff that amounted to. It's something unique in my life. And I think everyone has things like that. And whether they're good or bad, even if you have negative things from your past, that can be really helpful in your personal branding to realize you have something really unique to offer people because you had maybe traumatic experiences or negative things happen to you in the past. You can come alongside people and serve people in a unique way that maybe I can't, because you've had those experiences. So I just think it's really helpful to pause and think about how your past is really informing what you can do in the future.
Absolutely. And that's a great point, Ryan. I think talking about your failures as well is really important because it shows that you're human. It makes you a little bit more likable, and it's easier to trust people who are honest and vulnerable. So sharing those failures too, whether you're, really trying to hone in on building your personal brand online, creating content about what transformation happened, how were you thinking before, how are you thinking now after that, failure has come to pass. So I agree with you completely, Ryan. Also, you didn't give your mustache credit. You just called it a mustache. And we all know it's a fantastic mustache.
Thank you, Macy. I work really hard at it. So, all right. So step number 3, we're going to move on to, so now that you know a little bit about who you are, your personality, some of your goals, what your unique value proposition, it's time to think about okay, now who are the people that I really want to go out and meet? What, our target market. So are there certain businesses or industries or even individuals that it would be your dream to meet with them, get to know them and learn more about them? Figure that out. Who are those people? And then once you figure that out, where are they? That's the next step. You need to identify, where are these people? So I'm going to talk about this more from the physical, in-person, real life side of things. And then Macy will touch on it from the digital side. But I would say for the physical side, once you've identified, who those people are, where are they physically? So 2 suggestions are, the first one's networking groups, and bravo to everyone that's here because you're participating in that right now. Even though it's virtual, you're still participating. So YPN is an awesome opportunity for connecting with people and establishing your personal brand in a physical way. And obviously we all have that common connection of being young professionals, but there's lots of other great networking groups that fill sort of different purposes and are a different collection of people. So I would say explore those options and who's at each one of those. So you have YPN, you have Chamber, you have groups like BNI, which are very specific to like referral passing and building business, which is cool. Then you have groups like Rotary and Lions and other ones that are a nice blend of like business and professional with like acts of service and engaging in the community. So that's really cool. But I would say like 1 to 3 groups would be really great. So if you can identify where are those people at that you want to connect with, and then go there. And then once you start doing that, I would really encourage you, and I'm big on this one, like schedule one-on-ones with people and be a go-getter for one-on-ones. I know it's scary to like put yourself out there and ask someone, but I have found that most people say yes. You ask them like, hey, you want to grab a meal sometime, coffee, beer, whatever it may be. You'll get that opportunity to get to know them and hear their story and hear what matters to them in business and what's on the horizon for them. So if you have those dream people that you wish you could connect with, just go ask. And for me, that's transitioned into my life at Lippert. Like Lippert's obviously a really big company. So now I've started to do that internally, where it's like I've identified some of those, leadership people, executives that it's like, man, I wish I could just like grab a meal with them. Just email them. And it's, I've done it twice so far and both have said yes. And it's been awesome. So there's a lot of benefit to that. You build really deep connections and relationships with people, and you become a trusted source for individual people, which is great.
Yeah, building relationships in real life, face-to-face is so important. When I first moved up to South Bend, the reason why I made friends and got connected was through YPN. So I'm really, really grateful for this network because I've made a ton of friends through it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the digital side of defining your target market. So we have to know where, depending on your objectives, you have to know where the people that you're trying to communicate to are on social media. And so you can do this in a variety of ways, but one way to do this is by understanding the demographics of your audience and where they're at per social media platform. So once you understand this, then start communicating in those platforms. You don't need to be trying to build a personal brand online on, 6 social media channels. That's overwhelming. You'll probably experience burnout trying to manage all the communication coming in, all the content that you're going to create. So my suggestion is to really hone in on just a few social media platforms where you can really speak to your audience and create content for them. The second point is to think like your audience. So again, depending on your objectives, if you want to start a business, publish a book, get a promotion, change jobs into a different industry, whatever your objectives are, you need to be able to speak about that and speak and appeal to the person that you're trying to communicate to. So for me as a business owner, I'm trying to communicate with business owners. And so I'm putting myself in their shoes when it comes to my messaging. My goal is to call them out in my messaging and have them have the aha moment. I need to work with Macy and Blossom because they'll help me achieve these goals. And this is what I'm experiencing right now. And so how have I been able to kind of craft messaging around that? And it's through creating a persona. And so this is another suggestion that I have. If you're not sure how to define your audience and really communicate to your audience, is to develop a persona of your target market. So this could be a person that you find online, you print out a picture of them, then you can do some research on their demographics, what they care about, what are their pain points, why would they work with you, why would they partner with you, why do they want to meet with you? Just a general idea of what this person is, print it out, have a little graph or whatever of all the information that you've written up about the research that you've done for your target market. Put it next to your laptop. When you're creating content on social media, communicate as if you're talking to them, because you're going to hit the target every single time. You're going to make sure that the messaging is just on par every single time because you've already built out what this ideal person looks like. So that's my suggestion, is to be very niche and very specific, depending on your objectives again. But when we communicate online, if we're trying to speak to everybody, all the hundreds and thousands and millions of people, we're going to speak to nobody, because not everybody is going to be able to relate to what you have to say. And so what my suggestion is to niche down and to talk to those, 300, 400 people, as an example, that are really going to understand and get value from what you're trying to say. And again, that aligns with your objective, so it helps you as well. Step number 4, develop a content strategy. And so this is really fun for me because this is what I do in my day job. So developing a content strategy. So I'm going to give some suggestions. After this, we're going to go through content pillars and how you can kind of develop your content strategy. So I'm just going to share a few recommendations for developing a content strategy. Number 1 is to build relationships online and to be a resource. So again, personal branding is about being a resource because you're giving value. It's not me, and it's not ego driven. So I would say provide value and give away free, helpful knowledge. And when I'm speaking about this, I'm speaking about it from an online perspective. So give people valuable content and knowledge that will help better themselves and their businesses. And so why this is so important is to have quality content over the quantity of content, because people will see your post and be like, Macy always shares good content about social media marketing. Macy always helps me with this. I'm not sharing motivational posts every single day because I know personally that's going to water down my brand. After enough people see that, they'll be like, oh, Macy only posts motivational quotes. Although it's helpful for a second, like I've already read enough, I don't need any of that. And so it's really important to also protect your image and to protect your brand with your words and then the type of content that you create as well. So providing value and providing knowledge to other people. I think that a big proponent of this is because it adds trust and credibility. Again, you're coming from that place of value, but it just in return helps you become more credible and build trust as a professional and a subject matter expert in your industry. I would create authentic posts that's a mix of your human side and professional side. Ryan, I think you do a fantastic job at this. And so really showing like your personality with the professional side as you're building your personal brand, because that's going to humanize who you are, because you're going to be more relatable. Then people might come up to you and ask you questions. I know, for example, on the Cressy commercial real estate videos that I used to do, they're called Cressy Insights. Kennedy Richardson now does them. She does a phenomenal job. When I first started doing them, I was new to the community and people started recognizing me. So I'd be out at South Bend Chamber events, just different places, and they would come up to me and introduce themselves to me. And so that's another thing that I would suggest is putting yourself out there and stepping outside of your comfort zone. You never know what's going to happen. There's a lot of different things that you can do with your content. You don't just have to have static imagery. You can create videos, you can have webinars, you can go live. There's an array of things that you can do when you develop your content strategy. And as you're adding value to other people, it's just going to help significantly in the long term. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about developing a content strategy. So I have content pillars, and actually I do this for my customers as well. So on the side, you can see educational, inspirational, entertaining, promotional, shareable and relatable, and community. So these are really broad ones. So almost anybody can use these. So that's number 1, is to create custom content pillars. Yours can be a little bit more industry specific. If you're an international company and community isn't as significant when it comes to the company's brand, maybe swap that out. So community, maybe swap it out for, I forgot what I even just said, but swap it out for the other one that I just said. Number 2 would be to brainstorm topics, experiences, and knowledge for your stories and your content pillars. So for example, educational, so brand awareness content, helping people understand who you are, or if you're representing a company, who that company is. We want to put our customers at ease working with us. We want them to know exactly what happens when they work with us, how easy it is to work with us, what transformation happens when they work with us, and why it's better than anybody else. So that's just from a business perspective. But you can choose entertaining, you can put in some funny GIFs, you can put in, a funny video if it aligns with your brand tone and it aligns with your objectives, and you can kind of have a funny twist. And it also depends on what platforms you're communicating on as well. So If you're communicating on Snapchat and Instagram, it's probably going to be slightly different than how you communicate on LinkedIn with other professionals. So that's another suggestion that I would keep in mind as you're creating your content. You're probably going to tweak your messaging a bit, and that's right. And that's the good thing to do, because on each social media platform, there are different people on there. So again, we want to call out our audience, but it kind of depends on what platforms we're on and how professional and how polished we want to be on each one of them. Number 3, write out captivating short stories that align with your objectives and will hook your audience. And so number 3 kind of explains itself. My suggestion would be to create a row of the content pillar topics, and then in the columns, write down your little stories. So education, inspirational, entertaining, promotional, and then in the columns, write out short stories about whatever it is that aligns with your objectives and your long-term goals. Number 4 would be to build out a content calendar for how frequently you want to post and be active online. Social media is a social tool. It's all about communication. It's all about relationship building. And so my suggestion here is be aware of how often you want to be on social media. I don't recommend just posting and then getting off of social media. I recommend staying on and really building relationships and adding value. So it's up to you to decide how much time you want to spend on it right now, depending on maybe your workload or even your mental health. I know social media can be tough sometimes to be on all the time. So just be aware of that, and building out a content calendar can be really helpful for consistency.
Yeah, I just want to hit on that real quick, Macy, of just an encouragement and how that really is true with those pillars and building out a calendar. For me, when I got active on LinkedIn about 1.5 years ago, I was not active at all. And then I had a goal of becoming active on LinkedIn. So I wanted to post every day, Monday through Friday. And at first that was really intimidating and overwhelming. So what I did is I came up with what I called a rhythm for myself, very much in line with those pillars, where every day I had a hashtag that I used. So I had Meet Mondays, Topical Tuesdays, Wonderful Wednesdays, Thankful Thursdays, and Funny Fridays. And just like those pillars, it was really helpful because I was able to think about content and stories that fit in those buckets. So it just made it more manageable each day of like, okay, I still have to like create the post and the content, but at least I have a more narrow topic that I'm talking about on these days. And just a quick caveat or something I wanted to share was my Meet Mondays were the most successful. And I think that's because what I did on Meet Mondays is I would introduce someone from my network or someone that I knew in the community to my network. So I would spotlight someone else in the business world here locally. So I'd post a picture of them and I would have interviewed them in email. So I would just put a summation of that interview in the post. And people loved that. And I think it was because people recognized that as like using my platform to shine the spotlight on other people, again, like serving and helping others and really building community. So I loved the content calendar, and my Meet Mondays were the most successful.
Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. That's super helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So I think now that you have all of this going, you have a plan and you're ready to execute. Now the step is execute and keep executing, like be consistent. That's my encouragement to you, almost in tandem with confidence, and almost equally as important is confidence and consistency. Don't just dip your toe in the water and then take it out and then maybe put it back in a few months later or something like that. You need to put yourself out there and then just keep doing it, keep showing up. So if you're in a networking group, go to everything that you can or that you have time for. Keep scheduling those one-on-ones, digitally keep showing up. I know for me, when I started this journey, that was a big thing, is that I really committed and I just started going to everything that I could. And I became very active on social media. And so, it's one of those things, like if you keep showing up somewhere, people are like, I keep seeing this guy with a mustache showing up, like whether it's in the community, whether it's at events, whether it's online, I keep seeing content and stuff from this man. And that worked. People became intrigued. They're like, well, I'm super intrigued. I got to know who this guy is. So I think if you just start showing up and people start seeing you at multiple things, or they keep seeing your content online, they'll be a lot more likely to engage with you and start a conversation and give you that opportunity to build a relationship.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan, I would say, and I think that you might agree, is that our personal branding journeys were very different. And so what worked for Ryan maybe didn't work for me, and vice versa. And what works for us might not work for you. And so same with Ryan, my recommendation is to go all in. Building a personal brand takes time because you're building trust, you're building credibility, you're building confidence in other people that you can be a good recommendation and a good source, which is trust again. And so I would say, yeah, this is like a long haul approach. And so another thing with consistency is there are social media scheduling tools. Hopefully you're aware of them. If not, there are plenty of tools online. And a lot of them are free if you only use a few platforms. So if it's just your personal brand and you're trying to be on Facebook and LinkedIn, you can use Hootsuite. There's also another platform called Loomly. Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same company, so you can schedule all of your Facebook and Instagram content in Facebook Publisher. So those are some recommendations. I would also share though, scheduling out content is fantastic, especially if what you're saying now will still make sense in a month from now. However, I would also be aware that it can kind of burn the creativity side. A lot of things happen in day to day where it's like, oh, I could share that in social media, or maybe this will add value to other people by me sharing this really awful experience that just happened to me in business, so other people don't do the same thing that I did, or whatever it is. So I would mix it. So schedule some content out just so you know that it's consistent. You're still going to be able to add value. You're in it for the long haul, but also make sure that your cap is put on for being aware of what's going to happen, so you can write content about it as well in real time, so it's still authentic and true to who you are. Okay, step 6, build a community and engage. So building a community in person, building a community online, both are so significant. We only have one life. To me and Ryan, I feel like we're the same. Like, we're here to impact. We want to add value. We want to make other people and businesses better, like to the best of our ability. And so that's step number 6, is to build a community and engage. So online, I'll give some online tips for this. Like I was saying earlier, social media is a social tool. Add your 2 cents, add value, inspire others, encourage other people, share an article that might be helpful for somebody. Like I said, and like we've been, pushing and pushing, it's not ego driven. This is all about sharing content with other people, sharing value with other people. And so a goal when it comes to building a community is to really create a group of people that like, know, and trust you, but they're also your cheerleaders. They're going to be cheering you on and voluntarily saying your name when somebody asks for a reference, or do you know anyone who's in this space? Yep. And so even if they don't know you online, you've already been warming up your audience and painting that perception as if they truly know who you are, because you've been showing up authentically, even though you maybe never met in person. And so that's why it's super important, especially online, is to really show your true self and really to add value. So you can kind of create this group and cheerleaders that will refer you. Not only that, but will help push you to be a better version of you, and you can help them be a better version of themselves. So whether or not you're like, let's create a group that helps impact young girls in the Michiana region, or whatever it is, it's all about building relationships. And so you have to be active online to do that. You have to be responsive to messages, comments. Like I said, it's a communication tool. And so that's super important. And then in person, I'm sure as you all understand how important it is to build a community in person, because in person is the real thing. Social media and creating that digital personal brand is just another additional way to stay top of mind and to share stories and to add value. But building a community in person is so significant. And so this is why I really appreciate YPN for the opportunity today. And so, building a community in person is super significant as well. So as Ryan touched on at the very beginning, attending networking groups, putting yourself out there, going the extra mile, doing one-on-ones. So these are just some recommendations that we have about building a community and engaging in person and online.
Yeah, and I think for engaging in a community, just realizing that when you're building a personal brand, you're hoping that others will respond to you, and just realizing that people are also on that journey as well, and they're hoping that you'll respond to them. So just reciprocating. That's why community is so important in personal branding. You really need to be going that extra mile to respond to everything that you can. When you're at a networking event and someone walks up to you and maybe they weren't the person you were most excited to talk to, realize that maybe you're that dream person that they were hoping they could get that conversation with or have sit down and have coffee with. So like it works both ways. And like Macy said, it's the same thing online. Like due diligence to like, if you're going to post something, be willing to respond to comments, respond to emails, of course, like follow through on all of that. That's really important when you're going to build a personal brand, because if you're not following through and people recognize that you're just putting stuff out there, but you're not actually engaging, that'll be off-putting and they'll stop engaging with you.
Absolutely. Here's a quote that I just love. And I think it's really good just to share as we're talking about personal branding, because it can be scary. The only limit is the one you set yourself. And so it's really about those self-limiting beliefs. Personally, I think building a personal brand has a lot to do with a mindset shift. And as I mentioned earlier, a way that I was able to combat this is by coming from a place of service, a place of, good intentions and having a good heart. But that's our takeaway today too, is, the only limit is the one that you set on yourself. So all those negative comments in your head, who's going to like me? I've only been doing this for a few months. I'm new to the area. I'm new to this industry. Stop it right now, because those are fake voices that are trying to stop you from pushing you to your best self. And so you have to just go there, just put yourself out there. Those voices could hold you back forever, and don't let them, because you're so worthy, you're so deserving. We want to hear your story. And so don't put limits on yourself. You just have to try and put yourself out there and be consistent.
100%. So yeah, well, thanks everyone. We really hope that this has been beneficial. Every great presentation ends with some of those great takeaways. So we want to make sure you guys know what some of ours are from today. So those would be: personal branding can change your career and life. Amen. Communicate with a "how can I serve you" mindset. Double amen. Believe in yourself and be confident in who you are. Definitely. So follow the steps to building your personal brand, the ones that we've communicated to you guys today, as a foundation to build your brand professionally and authentically. For sure. Like, we hope that these have been really helpful and spur on thoughts and inspiration for you to try some of this and go through some of the steps and see how it goes. No matter where you're at, whether you're at the start of your journey or whether you're somewhere in the midst of building your personal brand. And then the last thing, and I think it's important to end with this, is to develop a digital content strategy, because we're all very well aware that the world has become increasingly more and more of a digital space in society, especially in the last 2 years, because certain things have happened. I think it is really important to, if you're going to really take the steps to build a personal brand and put yourself out there, yes, do it physically, get involved in the local community, at events, at networking events, on one-on-ones, definitely do that stuff. But I would say it's equally as important, become active on some social media platform. And I know for some people it's like, social media. But if you really want to see it, or you really want to see growth and connect with people, view it as a tool. And that's how I've gone about it. Like, see social media really as a tool for being able to share ideas and present yourself as an expert in what you do and build those connections and relationships. And you'll see a lot of benefit from that. So definitely get involved in social media. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you all so super much. I know we're running really tight on time, but does anybody have any questions?
I see one that's about, from Andrea, that's about posting, just not feasible to post as often as I said, once a day, which I totally understand. That is not feasible for a lot of people. Thankfully, my job allowed that. So yeah, I would say if you're really trying to establish yourself, it depends on the channel. Channel does matter with how much. So you need to do some research on like the channel that you're looking at. Does it require a little bit more consistency and regular posting, or is it a channel that I can get by with less frequency? But I would say like something like LinkedIn, I would recommend posting once a week, at least to establish yourself. If you can post once a week, and that gives you the opportunity to really come up with quality content, like think through really what you want to post and then be intentional about posting it. But that would be my recommendation. But like I said, different channels, like if you're going to be posting on like Twitter, let's say, Twitter does require a lot more frequent short posts. So it just depends.
Dave, to your question, is there recording? Yes, all of the sessions this week will be recorded, so feel free to share once they're uploaded. Great. Well, I'll keep looking to see if there's any other questions, but thank you both. I actually learned a lot. When we were talking about sessions and what to do, and this came up, I kind of laughed. I said, I'm one of the older YPs, and so, you know, personal branding to me, I'm like, it's like to be an influencer, like, you know, how is that? I learned so much from this, and I really appreciate it. So, yeah, you know, the amount of content and whatnot to post, yeah, it'll be changing for me as well. And hope you guys follow them on social media, whichever platform, so please find them. I'm sure we can get their social media to put out, but thank you again. I really appreciate your time. So now we have the winners for the two $25 gift cards to the Lauber. And today's winners are Mackenzie Clark and Braxton Linville. So congratulations, and thank you to First Response as they are providing those gift cards. So look for in your email as they are e-gift card and will be emailed out to you. Again, thank you for everyone for joining today, and to Notre Dame for their support. Join us tomorrow at noon for our last session for YP Week. Mind, Body, and Connection, and then after is our after party at Generations Adventureplex. It's at 4 o'clock from 4 to 6, so don't feel you need to be there at 4, but come anytime in between. Make sure you register. There is a nominal fee just to kind of cover some of the drinks and things like that, but there's a lot of fun things to do. Check out ypnsouthbend.com for all other upcoming events that we have slated next month and through the end of the year. But without further ado, I don't think I see any more questions. Thank you very much, and everyone have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Take care.